Thanks for watching today's Devotionable. These are brief devotions for busy people. What if you don't feel like going to church? If you've been a Christian for any amount of time, you've probably had that feeling before. Or maybe you feel that way right now. Maybe it's been a while since you've been at church because you really just don't feel like going. Recently I came across this booklet that's produced by 9 Marks Ministry, and the title on this booklet is that exact question. What if I don't feel like going to church? Well, in today's devotionable, and actually in the next 2 devotionables, I'm going to be covering some of the content in this booklet because I think it addresses a very important question. What should we do if we don't feel like going to church? Well, I want us to see, first of all, 2 things that we should know about feelings. And the first is that our feelings shouldn't dictate our choices. If we always followed our feelings, no marriage would survive. If we always followed our feelings, all my kids would eat would be candy. And if we always followed our feelings, marathons wouldn't be a thing because they're very painful, and who would ever want to do them? But the Bible gives us a warning about feelings. In Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12, we read this. It says, "There is a way that seems right to a man." There's a way that feels right to a man, but its end is the way to death. So, for the Christian, we know that our desires and convictions, they run deeper than our feelings and our emotions. So that's the one thing I think we need to know about feelings as we think about our feelings towards going to church. We know that sometimes our feelings can lead us astray. Another thing that we need to remember is that most feelings are really a symptom of kind of an underlying cause. And when we don't feel like going to church, usually there's something happening on a deeper level. So what are some of the most common reasons that this Sunday you may wake up and not feel like going to church? And let me go through a list with you. One of them can be physical reasons. Maybe you just feel sick, or you're tired, you're exhausted, or maybe you're in pain for some reason. So sometimes we don't want to go just because of how we feel physically. Sometimes it's a spiritual issue. Maybe we're just in a really dry season spiritually, and we just have no appetite for the things of God. So sometimes it can be spiritual issues. Sometimes it can be relational. Maybe your marriage is strained, and you really don't want to come to church with your spouse. Or maybe there's someone at church you've got a broken relationship with, and you just can't. You just don't really want to face them on that given Sunday. So sometimes there's relational reasons that might keep us from church. Sometimes it's just logistical. Maybe we work on Sundays, or we travel a lot on the weekends. Other times it's issues of preference. Maybe we don't want to go to church because, let's be honest, the service is just a little too long. Or maybe we don't like the music. Or maybe the people just aren't friendly enough. Or maybe we think that the pastor doesn't do a good job in preaching. There can be a number of reasons related to preferences that we might not want to go to church. Sometimes it's cultural issues. Maybe you're an immigrant and you're in the United States and you're going to a church and everything is just so different. And it's really hard for you to connect with the people. Similar to that, if you're a minority and you're in a church that looks much differently than you, the customs are just kind of different from what you're used to, that can be very challenging as well. Or maybe you're kind of a blue collar kind of guy and you're going to a white collar kind of church. So sometimes there are cultural issues that really kind of just suppress our excitement for wanting to be with God's people. If we're honest with this, with ourselves, sometimes it's recreational reasons that we don't want to come to church. The weekends are prime time to do those things that we love, our hobbies, our other activities. And sometimes that really cuts into our ability to be able to attend worship with God's people. Sometimes we don't want to go to church. We're not excited about it because of doctrinal reasons. Maybe we don't always agree with what's being preached. And other times it's just, maybe it's a personal issue. Maybe we've been burned by a pastor. We've had a bad experience with another church. And so there's all of these different reasons that we might not feel like going to church. And maybe some of these resonate for where you're at. So that's one of the things I would say in this devotional today is if you don't feel like going to church, try to discover why is that? What's really that underlying issue, that cause that's keeping me from wanting to be with God's people? The opening line in this booklet is this. It says, "The most important time to be at church is when you don't feel like it." And I think we understand that to be true. And when you don't feel like it, that's probably the time when you most need God's people and to be in the Lord's church. So if you feel this way, what should you do? If you don't feel like going to church, how should you respond? Well, that will be the content of our next devotionable, and I hope that you'll be listening. So thanks for watching today's devotionable, and we'll see you next time.